lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Lounge. My name is Ryan. Back with me again, I have one of my favorite indie cartoonists, Kirt Burdick here. I'm so excited to have you back on the channel, dude.
Cool,
Talk-
thank you.
Yeah, so last time we talked, I mean, the whole impetus for me asking you to come on was your Death of Power book. Obviously, you have some other great books as well. Galacto Pit Fighter is one of my favorites of yours, but Death of Power has really caught fire, I would
Yeah, I
say,
think so.
among the indie fans and stuff. I think cartoonist kayfabe through that video. I'm sure the kayfabe effect
Yeah,
affected you.
100%.
Yeah.
It was kind of a blessing for me and is like really important. Yeah, I'm very grateful to them and the channel and the whole community.
It started off with you just doing this riff on the death of Superman, but it has become so much more. You are now currently on the fourth issue with, well, it's done because I mean I've read it already, but you have a Kickstarter for it that's going live right now. I think just under 2 weeks as of the day we're recording. So what was the idea? Why expand on that and just go completely I mean, first of all, it's a fucking insane book, and we will be doing a creator commentary on the channel, and it'll have to have a parental advisory on the fucking video. But I'm just how does your mind go from Death of Superman to just insanity? Where is this coming from?
I'm really into writing out outlines to any project. With the 3 books or a series that I've actually completed or completed books of, which was Fair Kick, Galactic Pit Fighter, and this one, I always write out really huge outlines of okay, if this is actually successful, this is where I'm going to go. Fair Kick was a standalone story, but I had other stories in that world that I was building up, and I still am. I go back to those every now and then, and same with Galactic Pit Fighter. And so I did the first Death Power from the prompt from cartoonist kayfabe, and and I did that and it was successful. And after I was done with that, I wrote out this pretty rough outline of where, okay, this is how I would think that series should go. And not necessarily riffing on the Dan Jurgens, Death of Superman, Reign of Superman. I played around with some of the ideas of doing that, but I thought it'd be better to just go my own way, kind of influenced from, at least conceptually, from Rick Veitch, and definitely a lot of the deconstructionist comics from the 80s that I really love, like Martial Law, Brat Pack, obviously Watchmen, but more not, more that kind of soul and concept. And also trying to think okay, the way I see that universe, how would it conclude? How would that story conclude? And then I wrote out the outline, and the key thing would be that Lois Lane and Lex Luthor would be in a relationship. And so that was going to be the next issue. I did that people like that. And then so I'm just going down the outline at this point, trying to get as much done. And I really thought it'd be cool to do a maxi series. Initially, I outlined it to be a 12-issue maxi series, which is honestly too ambitious for me. So I whittled it down to 9 issues. So
okay, yeah. Last time we talked, you were at 12, so it's changed to 9 now. Okay,
I got it down to 9. Okay. So yeah. And I think that still counts as a maxi series, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think I don't know.
Anything over 8.
6. Okay, over 8.
No, you're right. It's over 6.
Say 6, yeah.
Oh, maybe I can get it down to 8.
No, dude, do 9. Do 9. I'm kind of upset that I'm losing 3 issues here. So do 9.
Yeah. Well,
it seems like you're having a fucking blast doing it. I mean, when I'm reading it, and I was like,
it's very fun.
Yeah, it looks like fun, and then coming up with these different versions in your head. First of all, talking to you, I would not think that the twisted shit that comes into those books that come from you, but and that's not to say it's a bad thing, but I think it's funny, to be able to go into that place and just do some way out insane shit. Because when you say Rick Veitch, and Brat Pack. Now, as I'm looking at it, I'm like, I can see it
Yeah,
more in my mind now when I'm thinking back on the, like, especially issue 2 to me, like I can see it a
right.
little bit.
Yeah, and again, it's more of that that spirit. Well, so
Spiritual influence.
spiritual influence.
Yeah.
He's my spiritual
Yeah,
guide.
he's your guru.
He's my guru. So yeah, so I just do acid and think of weird shit, but I don't. So I'm not that cool. But anyways, yeah. So really, so I mean, it really is tied to cartoonist kayfabe and just being a huge fan, and it's a very difficult time for that community. It's
Yeah.
even hard to talk about. But yeah, my heart goes out to everybody with what's recently happened. Beyond that, the the prompts was there Ed Piskor was looking at a lot of the Doujinshi books, and I love that idea. Like they were mentioning in the conversation between him and Jim about how in the Japanese market, there is a big bench of cartoonists, and they can get their kind of start doing these doujinshi porn comics.
Yeah.
So that's one of the elements that I kind of latched onto and was thinking like that's something that the American market needs in some way. Not so much the porn comics. I just think that's hilarious.
It is. I know when he was showing those, when he showed all those videos of the stuff he brought back from Japan, like the Ninja Turtle stuff, I was like, "This is wild,
so
man."
it seems so fun and
Mhm.
ridiculous and hilarious. I wanted that energy in there, and the parody of those kind of multi-million-dollar franchises. So that's one element of it. The other element was the call to do the a kayfabe version of the death of Superman,
Mhm.
which which I was totally down with, and I thought and yeah, so I just went from there, and I was in between projects in the sense that I just finished Galactic Pit Fighter 2. I didn't, it did okay. Like I kind of broke even with that project. I was a little in the red, but I quickly, I'm way, way, I'm fine now.
Yeah.
But so it's just very hard to continue the motivation with a project that isn't getting a lot of traction. I mean, that's what Fair Cake was too. So
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do it. It's much more challenging mentally, you
I
know.
think that's the only one of your books I haven't read, Fair
uh
Cake.
yeah, I have to send you one. I'm going after this Kickstarter, I'm basically going to be retiring that book
Mm.
from I have one box left, and I'm going to be selling maybe 10 or 15 from there.
Oh, okay.
And I'm saving the rest of it for for the vault.
The vault.
Vault. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, and I'm not going to be reprinting it anytime soon. And if I do reprint it, I was actually thinking of maybe printing it differently, in the sense I'm not sure if I'd print it with the full color version again. That's
Mm.
just something, because I originally printed that in that same Death of Power format with the cardstock comics, except,
Oh, interesting.
and that's kind of how I stumbled upon the cardstock format.
Can I ask you about that real quick? Because I don't
Yeah.
think I asked you about that with the first book. If I mean, maybe it's been a little while since we talked about it, but why did you decide? Like, what was the thought behind? I mean, I love it because it's like it's such a substantial book when you're holding it, and it makes
Yeah.
it so unique. I don't think I've ever seen anybody print an entire book on cardstock. So, what was the
He
thought?
was just playing around with different printers I found online to see what options they had. And so when I was working, that's really tied to Farrakhan. So when I was working on that project, it was through a discussion with a friend of mine, and I mentioned an interest in the Prince Valiant format, the adventure strip format, thinking like, you know, one that's a style of comic that's not done anymore,
Hmm.
that it could be really useful for doing like fantasy, because you could really, you know, those comic strips are have so much information in them. They're so layered. Each panel's layered with, you know, one story and then also visual narrative. And I thought that would be a great method of doing a fantasy story. And I had this fantasy story that I've been like on and off working on for years. And I thought like, oh, maybe that would be a good vehicle. And he kind of agreed, and he had some, and this is before the Fantagraphics reprints. He
Hmm.
had some really old 70s hardcover like collections, like
Oh
two.
yeah, I remember you telling me you got them during like COVID or something, right?
Well, no,
Or was
this
that
is
before?
this is like Jesus. This is a different time and a different world. This is like 2013,
Oh, okay.
20, or no, it's like 2012 or 2011,
Okay.
something like that. And so I borrowed those and I was just going over that. And he also, I think, I don't think he had any Flash Gordon from Alex Raymond, but I picked those up from a local shop. And so yeah, I just got really into that idea, into that skill set. So I
Hmm.
was really trying to, with my own limited skills, recreate that Alex Raymond, Hal Foster storytelling for like one of my own weird stories about lizard fairies. And it was much more challenging than I thought. Like a lot of those early pages in Fey Archaic, like took like over a month to complete, which, you know, and I still feel like they're relatively lacking. And it's just amazing that Hal Foster and Alex Raymond, of course, they were like, you know, legendary illustrators, but the fact that they would just get those pages done in a week,
Yeah.
which means like they would probably do them in 3 days or 2 days, you know, with
Crazy.
the production schedule.
Right.
You know, because they still need to spot the colors and get all the production down. It's just amazing to me. It's like really blowing away. But since I'm still a relatively slow artist. Since I was so slow, I thought like, oh man, how am I gonna do this? So I just started playing around with printing up first like 4 pages just in a folded paper I'd print at home. And I don't know if I tried the cardstock at home. I was doing them on ivory color like resume paper, and I'd
Okay.
fold them, and then I just sell. I think, yeah, I sold them to some local comic shops like Isotope, and like he was one of the first ones, and then Mission Comics, and then I found a printer online, and I tested it out with the cardstock, and I, you know, expanded it from 4 pages to 8 pages, so it'd actually be somewhat of a periodical. And
Hmm.
I went with the cardstock to see how that worked. And so I think those ones, so I just sold those for, I think at that time, $4. But you know, I think I know it seems like crazy to buy an 8 page comic, but there's a lot of information in that. Like those Alex Raymond and Hal Foster strips, each Sunday page was the story equivalent of a monthly Marvel comic, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Like they're very dense, and I can see why people moved away from that format and don't like the format, because it can get boring or like kind of stale
Hmm.
reading wise. Like we definitely, especially with influence of manga, which is the exact opposite of storytelling method for comics, we're much more into the energetic and emotional, visceral like storytelling now.
Yeah,
So
that's definitely prevalent in Death of Power, what you're
yeah,
describing with the manga influence and stuff like that. And I
yeah,
think that what I love too is, first of all, your color palette that you use, I think is, you know, something that really stands out to me. And I really love seeing like your reinterpretations like your Plastic Man. and,
Yeah.
and like and
I
when
would,
the elongated man scene when he goes into Lex's fucking battle suit, I laughed out loud last night
oh, good.
when I was reading it
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but like how so well, just to bring it back to Death of Power, like how are you deciding? Like you said, you have an outline, but like, are you kind of also having it go organically, or are you adhering to that outline pretty
It's a
strictly?
combination of both.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on the thumbnails for issue 6 right now.
Oh shit. Okay.
And yeah, so there's gonna be a lot more design work. And yeah, so I I used the outline as a framework, and then when I'm doing the thumbnails and some really embarrassingly rough like conceptual designs, and the thumbnails are barely legible. So there's like with Ed Pisker's like Red Room, he put in all his thumbnails, and they're completely publishable in my opinion. Like they're
I,
very good and they're
I think so.
readable, and mine are just like scribbles with a word like man, like car, and it's like a scribble, but I have to actually write it out so I
Mhm.
remember that scribbles of, so I'm actually thinking of like, maybe printing them up if I like get to all my stretch goals in this Kickstarter. I might make that the next stretch goal to print up my roughs of issue 1, but they're there's no reason anyone would actually want to look at those, because they're awful. But anyways, yeah, so that part's really is organic, and it does, I do change things and stuff, but I there are just like core beats that I have to hit. Like yeah, a lot of the designs, and for issue 3, I I yeah, I would do like a little rough idea of what my version of these kind of archetypal characters would be, but it'd be very rough, and I would do that either digitally or like in my sketchbook. And a lot of that is also just figuring out a cool pattern that is unique but reminiscent of the characters I'm kind of referencing,
Mhm.
you know. So, and I'm kind of really kind of glad. It does give me a lot of freedom, and a lot of the fun parts of making a comic where you're just trying to figure out how certain societies would work or how certain characters would evolve.
Mhm.
Like, so like through a discussion with a friend of mine, I was trying to figure out, for my version of Aquaman, which is this, at least right now, the Sea Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sea Dog, I think is his name, but that might change. Like, oh, there's someone gave me an idea for a different name, like Uber Uber Fish, or I can't remember. But right now it's Sea Dog, because that's, I guess, what my increasingly faltering memory can recall. And then Aqualad was going to be Sea Pup, but I was thinking, okay, like, okay, Aquaman is a hybrid of or mixed between like Atlanteans and the air breathers.
Mhm.
And I was thinking like, well, are Atlanteans like a genetically like different species, or are they just a branch of humanity? Like, how does that? I don't know. Like, I've never actually looked it up, like the origin of that in the DC universe. But it just becomes a fun play space to be like, okay, so the Atlanteans, maybe they're crashed alien race that is, and they just colonize the water, or they're like a early Neanderthal split in the timeline, or they separately evolved, I don't know, from traces of nth metal or something, I don't know. But anyway, so it gets into that play space, and I came down with my version, like, so they are going to be like separate, species,
Mhm.
and Aquaman's like a liger, like a tiger lion hybrid,
Mhm.
and that's why he's all big and powerful. So yeah. So he's like, yeah, that was what I was thinking, but I don't know, maybe that
The
sucks.
Aquaman scene was hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um,
I just like to like get, yeah. So there's a lot of thought put into some of this dumb shit that's never really. So I put all that thought into him having sex with the dolphin.
dude, I mean, but see, that's what's cool about talking to you about it because, like, I wouldn't know how much you're like putting into that in terms of like the breeds of like humanity and like what is he? Like that's the stuff that you put in the collection, dude. That's the stuff where you put all your
Yeah,
like thoughts down and like what you were coming up with. I mean, I
yeah.
personally love hearing that. So,
You know, yeah. It's just like, yeah. So yeah. I do a lot of world building.
mhm.
But then what the people see is him having sex with the blowhole of Fluke, which, I think enriches everyone's experience, hopefully.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, I want it to feel real.
In terms of like other characters and stuff, because Plastic Man, Elongated Man, I would say, while not obscure, are not maybe the most well-known characters.
Yeah.
Unless you're like diehard reader. Are there any other characters? I mean, without spoiling anything, like, are you going to be introducing any more
Yeah.
like really obscure characters?
Not too obscure. Yeah, I mean, there are going to be more characters being introduced, more concepts introduced. But I like DC Comics, and I also like that 80s period and in 70s period, partially from nostalgia, I think, because those were the first, that was my introduction to the
That's funny.
comic.
That's what I've been going back and reading for the past like 6 months. I've just been picking up all those like they had so many miniseries back then. Like all
Yeah,
these like really great like the Doctor Fate one by Giffen and D. Matthias.
yeah,
The fucking there's a Martian Manhunter one. There's the Phantom
yeah.
Stranger by Paul Kupperberg and fucking Mike Mignola that I just
Mignola. I was
discovered.
looking
I
at
was
that
like
recently, and that
so
is,
good.
and I think P. Craig Russell inked it. So that's
Yes.
Mike Mignola inked by P. Craig Russell,
It's
which
so
was
it's crazy.
legendary team.
Yeah,
So beautiful.
it is.
The covers, he's going against this, what is it? I forgot his name. Is Scapo or whatever his name is. The guy, he looks like a jester. It's like a Victorian wizard. I don't know. He looks awesome though, but he looks rad. He's wearing tights. He looks like neck down. It's like a jester, and then he has a hat. I don't know, whatever. But the Phantom Stranger, Magnola's Phantom Stranger,
Yeah.
amazing. I'm surprised more people haven't really looked at that book or talked about it because it is beautiful.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
side note, I'll erase this, but if you want to do a review of it with me,
I
that
would
would
have
be
to
dope.
reread it.
Okay, but if
Yeah,
you want to,
I would
I'm
have
down.
to
I
find it in
just
my
read it
collection.
I just read it recently, and I was thinking of doing a review, but I would love to do one with you. That'd be cool.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love that.
Cool.
Get
So
out of here.
yeah, she did. So anyways, like the success of like issues 1, 2, and 3 have been phenomenal with the Kickstarters, right? Now
Yeah,
your
very
issue
good.
4, I think, has already been fully funded,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
One of those stretch
So
goals.
how like obviously the response has been great. How has that affected your other work? Have people like really like latched on and picked up some of your past work too and stuff
Yeah,
like that?
yeah. Here and there. I mean, there hasn't been like this groundswell to get like everything from
Hmm.
everybody, but they're, yeah, definitely more interested. And yeah, that's, but most of the interest is in with Death of Power. I mean,
Yeah.
also, like I remember some of the feedback I got from Fey Archaic, people really are like overall don't like the adventure strip format.
Yeah.
Like it's just such an odd thing. It's not something that people are used to reading. They're not used to the like seeing the illustration and then reading a paragraph. I think that's like, ugh. For most people, it's just like, oh, why? Just, Jesus.
Yeah.
Which was kind of interesting. And also, there is, I think, a legitimate criticism that you're really telling the stories through the prose. So you're writing a very like a summary version of a novel with an illustration. The storytelling doesn't necessarily come from the illustration. The illustration adds to the narrative, but it's not telling the story through the illustration, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that's a core thing with like sequential art, comic books, manga. The story is told through the illustrations, through the drawing, you know. So the writing is the drawing with comics. And that's like with Jeff Darrow's artwork. Like some of those like crazily insane detailed pages, it's very much, you know, like going through those illustrations, you are reading a story. It's like looking at a like medieval tapestry sometimes.
Dude, that's a great description. That is totally what it feels like.
So it's like he's such a talented and skilled illustrator that it's literally he's drawing a literal epic, you know. Oh, yeah. Like Shaolin Cowboy is a literal like Victorian era epic. Like it's just not on a tapestry, it's on paper. And yeah, I've been like kind of buying a ton of books ever since COVID. I've been buying way too much. And I just have these stacks of books. So I still need to read his newest one. Is it Cruel to Be Kin? No, that was his last one. I forgot. Maybe it was Cruel.
I think it's Cruel to Be Kin.
Yeah, so I've heard that's like super good, but it's in my stack and I don't know where it is because at this point my stack is like 100 or 200 comics that need to be put into a long box. And it's
I know your pain, bro. I have probably more than that. It's a lot. Yeah.
I know. But so yeah, I'm at the point where like I try to work until like about 10 at night. Like so like I do my day job, then I work till 10, and then I have like, you know, between 10 and midnight to like read something or watch a movie. And I've been watching a bunch of really dumb like Ancient Aliens on YouTube. And I should really be reading the comics that I've been buying.
Yeah, I'm the same way, dude. I'm the same way. It's a never ending thing for sure. But I'm super stoked for Death of Power. I can't wait for the next few issues. I'm so happy that you're doing it because it's been a blast to read.
Oh, that's good. That makes me feel good.
So everybody listening, watching, make sure you hit the Kickstarter, go back it. You will not be disappointed with these comics. Okay. And Kirt, thank you so much for taking time to chat with me, dude.
Yeah, I had fun. Yeah, we gotta do that Phantom Stranger.
Yes. Yeah. Do Phantom Stranger, and we're gonna do some creator commentaries on Death of Power for sure.
Yeah,
awesome, dude.